everybody, and thank you for joining us for this week's Lunch with a Scientist. Today, we are joined by Dr. Seth Frisbie. He has over 35 years of experience working in public health. He is the principal or co-author on numerous articles in referred journals, chapters in scientific books, and government and United Nations reports. His team has worked on drinking water and public health in Asia, Africa, North America, South America, and Europe. Dr. Frisbie has won numerous awards for outstanding research and teaching.
Thank you for inviting me. Welcome to Excess Manganese in Infant Formula, an avoidable risk of neurological impairment with no benefit for young children. You will see that public health policy often lags behind scientific research by years or decades. My name is Seth Frisbie. For your due diligence, we offer the first of our 3 peer-reviewed papers on the risk of neurodevelopmental harm from excess manganese in infant formula and young child nutritional beverages sold in the United States. This is our second paper on this topic, and this is our 3rd peer-reviewed paper on this topic. In addition, the American Academy of Pediatrics section on epidemiology, public health, and evidence featured our work in their December 2021 newsletter. Finally, the World Health Organization used our papers to publish a global drinking water guideline. This guideline is designed to protect infants from neurodevelopmental harm and a lifetime of lost potential by reducing their exposure to manganese in the water that is used to reconstitute their formula. How did this all begin? Our team published the first national scale map of manganese-affected drinking water in Bangladesh in 2002. This map suggested that over 60 million people in Bangladesh were drinking water that exceeded the World Health Organization 0.5 milligram per liter drinking water guideline for manganese. This 0.5 milligram per liter drinking water guideline was provisional since a suitable study for use in calculating a guideline value could not be found, according to the WHO. Therefore, the ability of this guideline to protect human health was not known. This large exposure in Bangladesh and uncertainty of harm prompted 2 decades of research on the human health effects of ingested manganese. Ingested manganese from drinking water was first associated with lower intelligence scores for school-age children in Bangladesh in 2006. A large body of research clearly shows that excess manganese exposure is associated with neurological impairment in young children, including impaired cognitive development, lower IQ or intelligence scores, impaired memory function, lower academic skills or achievement, increased risk of attention deficits, hyperactivity, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and many other problems. So this long list of discoveries happened just in the last 20 years or so. And it was prompted by this discovery of 60 million people in Bangladesh drinking water with large amounts of manganese. Learning disabilities from exposure to manganese in infant formula was first suggested in 1983. This caused us to ask, is the concentration of manganese in infant formula still high enough to be a threat to neurological development? We use something called maximum variation sampling to select 25 infant formulas and young child nutritional beverages from the United States market. We included samples with diverse ingredients such as cow milk, goat milk, soy milk, rice, and chocolate. We included samples labeled for all ages, from newborns to toddlers. The concentrations of manganese in these 25 samples from the United States market were measured with a linear particle accelerator. This was highly accurate. The relative error for our measurement was only minus 0.22%. In analytical chemistry, a relative error of plus or minus 20% is often considered acceptable. So we use the best technology, the best instrument to get the most accurate results that we could. I want to talk a little bit about the units you'll see in this presentation. When we measure manganese in infant formula or any other solids, we report those results in micrograms of manganese per gram of solid formula. If we do this for liquids, we get the units of micrograms of manganese per liter of prepared formula. And then if you're interested in toxicology, the science of poisons, you convert those measured results into micrograms of manganese per kilogram of body weight per day. How much manganese are you ingested for your body weight each day? And regulators take the results from our measurements and they report their results after calculation in the units of micrograms of manganese per 100 kilocalories of formula. So we're going to bounce between those units throughout this presentation, and I'll point these changes out to you. Okay. So this is a graph of, on the x-axis, we have the reported micrograms of manganese per gram of powder from the label. This is what you read off the side of a container or can of infant formula. This is how much the manufacturer says is in their product. And on the y-axis, we have our measured micrograms of manganese per gram of powder. And note there's this result way out here. This is called an outlier. The manufacturer said that there was about 2 units of manganese in their product, but in reality, there's really 32. That's obviously a very misleading label. For the rest of these data, what we see is that if the reported manganese concentration in the label is, say, 1, we would multiply that by 1.63, and we would get a measured manganese concentration of 1.63. This is a 63% error. And so basically the amount of manganese in the formula is greater than what's on the label. And this was confirmed by an independent group of researchers looking at a different group of samples. Here, this is also U.S. products. If we have a reported manganese concentration of 1 on the label, we multiply that by 1.69, and they got a measured amount of 1.69 units. So that's 69% error. I'm really not too surprised about this. I used to measure the various things in vitamins that manufacturers would send to us, and it is a common practice to put in more than what's on the label. That way, if someone measures what's in their, say, vitamin C product, the customer will always find out that there's more, not less vitamin C than promised. And, you know, things that are essential for health, like manganese is an essential element. They often have what's called a U-shaped curve for toxicity. At low concentrations, there's a benefit, and at high concentrations, there is harm. So this is a concern for me. Here's a much larger concern. On the y-axis, we have micrograms of manganese per liter of prepared infant formula. This is the concentration of manganese that's in breast milk. This is the much larger concentration of manganese in infant formula for children that are less than 1 year old. And then here's the even bigger concentration of manganese in toddler formulas. These are formulas meant for children over 1 year old. So you can see the manganese content of formula products for children less than 1 year old and children 1 year or old or older is always much greater than the manganese content of breast milk. There's a reason for that in the United States. We'll talk about that in detail shortly. Basically, there's a 43-year-old, very outdated law. Remember, all this toxicology discovery has happened in the last 20 years. There's this 43-year-old law that is grossly out of date and encourages manufacturers to put extremely large amounts of manganese in their products. Okay. So this is a graph of micrograms of manganese per 100 kcals. This is what regulators use for units. And on this axis, we have the concentration of manganese relative to breast milk. And what that means is if the concentration of manganese relative to breast milk is 1, then the product has exactly the amount of manganese that's in breast milk. And you can see all of these US products have much more manganese than what's found in breast milk for these different classes. I'm going to talk about supplemented products right now. Most products are supplemented with manganese chloride, manganese citrate, manganese glutamate, or manganese sulfate. These are very concentrated forms of manganese. And products with supplemental manganese range from 31 to up here 860 micrograms per 100 kcals. And for comparison, a manganese concentration of 860 micrograms per 100 kcals is about 780 times greater than the average concentration of manganese in breast milk. Okay. A product with chocolate and without supplemental manganese, without these concentrated chemical forms of manganese, had about 200 times the amount of manganese that's in breast milk. Products with soy and without supplemental manganese had a maximum concentration of 170 micrograms per 100 kcal, and that's about 150 times greater than breast milk. A product with rice and without supplemental manganese had about 50 times the amount of manganese that's in breast milk. Products with cow milk and without supplemental manganese had the lowest manganese concentration compared to soy, rice, and chocolate products. And these are about 33 times greater than what's in breast milk. Okay, manganese is an essential element. We need this for life and growth. But it turns out that we need a very, very, very small amount. And later we'll be talking about toxicity, what happens when you get too much. But I want to show you that there is no problem getting enough manganese for proper nutrition. No problem with sufficiency. So we'll see this graph several times. On this axis, we have micrograms of manganese per kilogram of body weight per day. That's how much manganese someone ingests for every kilogram of their body weight. And what we're doing is looking at the amount of manganese that's ingested for these different ages, 3 weeks, 4.5 months, 7 months, 18 months. And down here in the green, this is the amount of manganese that you would get if you ingested only breast milk. Okay. Up here in the red is the amount of manganese that you would get if you, instead of ingesting breast milk, ingested U.S. formula products. So manganese deficiency has never been reported in breastfed children, and the manganese content of infant formula is much greater than the manganese content of breast milk. Therefore, manganese deficiency is highly unlikely with either exclusive or partial formula feeding. Symptoms of overt manganese deficiency in animals or humans have only been reported when diets are severely constrained, such as with confined farm or laboratory animals fed controlled rations low in manganese content. In humans, manganese deficiency has never been noted among people consuming ordinary diets. It is only manifested after extended periods of controlled experimental diets with very low manganese content or years of total parental nutrition, TPN, without manganese supplementation. So this is TPN, total parental nutrition. And you will only see manganese deficiency after years of TPN without supplemental manganese. Of course, they supplement patients that require TPN nutrition with manganese. So manganese deficiency is really not a problem if you consume anything that would be considered an ordinary diet. Of course, breast milk is the optimum food for infants. It's what we're designed to ingest as we're growing and developing. Provides all necessary macro and micronutrients, including manganese, in sufficient quantities to sustain health and development for at least the first 6 months of life. That's according to the European Safety Authority. The average or mean concentration of manganese in breast milk, expressed in the regulatory units of micrograms of manganese per 100 kilocalories, is here. So on average, breast milk has 1.1 micrograms of manganese per 100 kilocalories. Okay, now we're going to use this same graph again and start talking a little bit about toxicity. Okay, and as a refresher, this is the amount of manganese we intake at different ages on the y-axis. And what we can see is this is the amount of manganese that's ingested from breast milk. And this is the amount of manganese that's ingested if you relied solely on U.S. formula products. At all age stages that we studied, the manganese intakes from formula products were always much higher than the manganese intakes from breast milk. So that's right there is a warning, a red flag. The World Health Organization, about 1 year ago, spring of 2022, issued a global guideline. This is a 25 micrograms of manganese per kilogram of body weight per day, tolerable daily intake for manganese. And what this means is that this is the threshold between what is expected to be good and what is expected to be harmful. And we can see that breast milk at all ages is considered beneficial. And this is very concerning for me. At 3 weeks and 4.25 months, all U.S. Formula products exceed this safety threshold by the World Health Organization. And at 7 months and 18 months, most most U.S. formula products exceed this WHO safety threshold. Okay, now let's suppose that the people who are feeding infant formula, U.S. infant formula to their children, reconstitutes their formula with tap water that has 250 micrograms of manganese per liter. That is below the EPA health advisory level of 300. So the EPA has a 300 microgram of manganese per liter EPA health advisory level. Okay, and what you're doing is you're getting more manganese than what's just in the formula products. So in the previous graph, only the first two age groups, all of the products exceeded this safety level. Now you're getting the first three age groups exceeding this safety level. And again, most of the formula products at 18 months. So, you know, parents often use tap water to reconstitute formula. Tap water may contain considerable concentrations of manganese and still be within local, national, or international health-based guidelines. Formula made with tap water will contain higher concentrations of manganese than shown on the label. So that's a second source of manganese you need to be concerned about if you're using formula products. I said that the EPA health advisory was for 300 micrograms per liter for manganese in drinking water. The WHO issued a much lower and more protective 80 micrograms per liter drinking water guideline for manganese in 2002. The guideline was based on the 25 microgram of manganese per kilogram of body weight per day tolerable daily intake. And the purpose of this guideline is to protect infants from a lifetime of neurological impairment caused by using tap water with manganese to reconstitute infant formula. However, the intake of manganese from formula can be much greater than that from tap water. So the WHO is doing what they can to reduce the amount of exposure that infants get from manganese. They make global recommendations for drinking water. They aren't the organization that makes global recommendations for infant formula. We'll talk about that organization later. So why is this happening in the United States? The Infant Formula Act of 1980 is used by the United States to regulate the content of infant formula. And to start with, the minimum level required by law in the United States is 5 micrograms of manganese per 100 kcal. Well, remember, the average is 1.1. So by law, manufacturers must put in more manganese than there is on average in breast milk. Where'd this number come from? It's based on a 1976, a 47-year-old recommendation by the Committee on Nutrition of the American Academy of Pediatrics, because 5 micrograms of manganese per 100 kcal was approximately the level in commonly used milk-based infant formulas. Nothing to do with health, just what's on the market. Very important, there's no maximum. So using a presumed 5 microgram per 100 kcal average from milk-based infant formulas to set a minimum level, and having no maximum level encourages manufacturers to make infant formulas with manganese concentrations that greatly exceed the 1.1 microgram of manganese per 100 kcal average for human breast milk. That's the trouble, and I hope you can help me change this. We've been working on this for quite a while, and we clearly need your help. Okay. Let's talk about another aspect of the Infant Formula Act of 1980. Look at this product on the right. Boy, doesn't that look good for your baby. It's organic. It's certified non-GMO. It's tummy friendly. That's great. But look at this part, toddler formula. Products labeled as toddler formulas, toddler powders, follow-up formulas, anything that's not labeled infant formula is marketed as milk substitutes for young children and are not regulated under the Infant Formula Act. This is how manufacturers get around the need to comply with regulations. Many of the products with the highest manganese contents were these unregulated toddler formulas, toddler powders, and follow-up formulas. And here are a couple quotes from the World Health Organization. Quote, "It is clear that the marketing of toddler milks is a response to legislation that restricts marketing of formulas to infants." Quote, according to the World Health Organization. Another quote, "The now common cross-promotion practice by which breast milk substitutes for infants are promoted through labeling and advertisements of toddler formulas is a threat to breastfeeding and infant health, according to the World Health Organization." Okay, what's going on in Europe as a comparison? Another group of highly developed economies, how are they handling infant formula regulation of manganese? So in 2007, the joint World Health Organization, Food and Agriculture Organization, WHO, FAO, they have something called the Codex Alimentarius Commission, and they wrote a standard for infant formula. And this is used as a recommendation for the European Union to follow. They don't have to follow it, but they often do. In this case, they followed some of it, but not all of it. The minimum level is 1 microgram of manganese for 100 kcals of prepared infant formula. That's the recommendation of this committee. This minimum level is based on a 2005 recommendation by the Committee on Nutrition of the European Society of Pediatric Gastroenterology, Hepatology and Nutrition, Esfahan, because 1 microgram of manganese per 100 kcal is in the order of human milk concentrations. And they're right. The average is 1.1. So they're setting their minimum at just below the average amount that's in breast milk. That sounds reasonable. The Esfahan committee also recommended that there'll be a maximum level of 50 micrograms per 100 kcals. And this recommended maximum level was not based on infant health. It was equivalent to the manganese content of unsupplemented soy formulas, possibly to allow soy formulas to remain on the market without reformulation. So that's the recommendation from this group of pediatricians to the Codex Alimentarius Commission. And instead of establishing this recommended maximum level of 50 micrograms per 100 kcals, the Codex Alimentarius set a guidance upper limit of 100 micrograms per 100 kcals. And what's different from a maximum level and a guidance limit? A maximum, that's something that would be a law. That's a requirement. Guidance is a suggestion. This rejection of a 50 microgram of manganese per 100 kcal maximum level and the adoption of 100 microgram of manganese per 100 kcal guidance upper limit was proposed by the U.S. Delegation. Some of the members of this delegation are shown graphically in the top right. And in response, Dr. Kolesko, who attended these meetings, published this in the British Journal of Medicine. under the title Commercial Interest may be the strongest driver of what goes into infant formula. He said, moreover, the U.S. delegation requested that both maximum values and guidance values should not be lower than values used for formulas already on the market, even as such levels have not been subjected to systematic evaluation of their biological effects and safety. The underlying concept that levels of exposure determine safety is unknown in science, be it in toxicology, pharmacology, or nutrition. Quite a stern warning. So these recommendations were sent up to the European Union for ratification, and the European Union did accept as a law the minimum level of 100 micrograms of manganese per 100 kcals, and they accepted the 100 micrograms of manganese per 100 kcal as a maximum level. So that's a law, not a guidance upper value. So what's going on in Europe is the manganese in infant formula, it has a much lower average and a much narrower range. It's what's found on U.S. markets. Now let's talk about U.S. products once again. We have our toxicological units here, micrograms of manganese per kilogram of body weight per day. And we have U.S. formula products here. Green is with low water and yellow is with high manganese water. And here we see all of these products with a low or high manganese water exceed the 25 micrograms of manganese per kilogram body weight per day safety value set by the World Health Organization. And we also see that this is true for U.S. pediatric formula. Okay, these are formulas that are often prescribed by pediatricians, and we've been working with the American Academy of Pediatrics about this issue. And here we see U.S. toddler or follow-on formula. And again, most of them exceed what the WHO considers as safe with either low or high manganese water. So all U.S. infant formulas and U.S. pediatric medical formulas in this market basket survey exceeded the WHO 25 micrograms of manganese per kilogram of body weight per day tolerable daily intake for manganese. Most U.S. formula and U.S. follow-on formulas exceeded this TDI. And again, the World Health Organization established this TDI to protect infants from a lifetime of neurological impairment. Their brains are forming, and they need to form correctly, otherwise it can impact these innocent children for the rest of their lives. So in conclusion, the current U.S. minimum level for manganese in infant formula of 5 micrograms per 100 kcal is higher than the international and European minimum level of 1. The international and European minimal level of 1 is scientifically based. It represents the manganese content of human breast milk. The U.S. minimum level of 5 is not based on the nutritional needs of infants. It is based on an assumed level of manganese in commonly used milk-based infant formulas from 1976, 47 years ago. The actual concentration of manganese present in present-day infant formula and young child products is significantly greater than the reported concentration on the labels of these products. In one case, the reported concentration was 2.04 micrograms per gram, and the actual concentration was 31.85 micrograms per gram, an error of 1,450%. And that was a toddler product, which you know is not regulated by the Infant Formula Act. It's kind of like the Wild West. Manganese deficiency has never been reported in breastfed children, and the manganese content of infant formula is much greater than the manganese content of breast milk. Therefore, it is highly unlikely that manganese deficiency could occur with any infant or young child that consumes infant formula, even if the formula is not supplemented with manganese. And a large body of recent research, mostly within the last 20 years or so, clearly shows that excess manganese exposure is associated with a long list of neurological impairments in young children. Products that are supplemented with manganese salts often have higher concentrations of manganese than unsupplemented cow milk-based formula. And again, these products always have higher concentrations of manganese than human breast milk. Products that use chocolate, soy, or rice often have higher concentrations of manganese than cow-based infant formula. And again, these products always have higher concentrations of manganese than human breast milk. Infant formula and young child nutritional products may lead to excess manganese consumption, even while meeting current regulatory standards for formula. I'd like your help changing these standards, please. We've been working very hard, but haven't been getting much traction. Excess manganese intakes are more likely if formula is reconstituted with water that contains significant amounts of manganese, even if the water meets regulatory guidelines or standards for drinking water. Okay. Now, what can parents do? Well, what I hope you can do is relay this information to family and friends that are starting families, because there are some things you can do. If possible, breastfeed for 2 years or longer, as recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics. That's not always possible for some people, but that is what the American Academy of Pediatrics thinks is best. Introduce complementary foods at about 6 months. Real food, applesauce, strained carrots, all that kind of stuff. If infant formula is needed during the first year, use, quote, infant formula. It must say infant formula on the label. Do not use toddler formulas, toddler powders, follow-up formulas, etc. Don't use anything that doesn't say infant formula. These are not regulated by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to provide appropriate energy and nutrition for infants and young children. And do not use any products that have manganese chloride, manganese citrate, manganese glutamate, manganese sulfate, or other manganese salts, or chocolate. There's no reason for a newborn to experience chocolate so early in their life. Chocolate is naturally high in manganese. So remember, the reported amount of manganese on the labels is inaccurate and often low. You're better off looking at the ingredients than the number on the side of the container. So avoid these ingredients, all manganese salts and chocolate. If infant formula is needed during the first year, if possible, avoid products that use soy or rice. Dairy intolerance in infants is extremely rare. Most infants of dairy intolerant mothers can tolerate dairy. Using soy or rice formula exposes infants to high manganese intakes. So soy or rice should only be consumed by infants when absolutely necessary. And we'd recommend using the World Health Organization guideline of 80 micrograms of manganese per liter for the water that's used to reconstitute formula. If you're on a city water supply, that's probably not going to be a problem. It's mostly a problem in rural areas where people have private water supplies. At about 6 months, begin to supplement breast milk with complementary foods. Exclusive breastfeeding without complementary foods after 6 months has been linked with iron deficiency anemia. So you want to give the kids real food at 6 months. Supplement breast milk with complementary foods, not formula. After 1 year, feed with regular foods. and continue to breastfeed or switch to regular dairy products for liquid nutrition. Regular dairy products, milk, whatever, provide appropriate energy and nutrition for young children over 1 year old. And again, do not use toddler or follow-up products at any age. So this is our recommendation for regulators. Eliminate the current U.S. minimum level for manganese. This would remove the motivation for manufacturers to supplement infant formulas with manganese. This would most likely not cause manganese deficiency, since even unsupplemented formulas contain a lot more manganese than breast milk. Alternatively, lower the U.S. minimum level for manganese to 1 microgram per 100 kcal, the current international standard. Require that the manganese content reported by the manufacturers on the labels of their products accurately represent the actual manganese content on these products. Make those numbers on the side of the container actually mean something. Prohibit the supplementation of infant formula products with manganese chloride, manganese citrate, manganese glutamate, or manganese sulfate, or any other manganese salt. This could significantly reduce the possibility of exposure to excess manganese. Establish a maximum level of manganese that protects child's health. The Codex Alimentarius upper limit of 100 micrograms per 100 kcal could be used as a starting point for a U.S. maximum level. Although this is an international standard, it does not have a proper scientific basis and would likely not be protective enough of children's health, according to current research on manganese toxicity. A new U.S. maximum level of 50 micrograms per 100 kcal would be more protective of children's health and allow some soy-based products to stay on the market. It could also motivate manufacturers to develop safer soy-based products with lower manganese contents. Prohibit the cross-marketing of toddler products. These products are not regulated as infant formula by the FDA. Cross-marketing suggests to consumers that toddler products are regulated as infant formula for safety and effectiveness. They are not. And these are the sources that I've used in this talk. They're also present at the bottom of the slides that I've been showing. You can take screen captures of this. We'll see if we can make this PowerPoint available to you as well. And these are the numeric citations that are used in that long list of newly discovered neurodevelopmental problems with manganese. And again, you can take screen captures, or we'll see if we can get you this PowerPoint through this organization that we're working with. So many, many, many references about the toxicity of manganese. This is mostly within the last 20 years. Okay, thank you very, very much.
Want to learn more about our Lunch with the Scientist program? Make sure to like and subscribe and visit us online at www.headwaterscienceinstitute.org for a full list of our video library and curriculum.